Hi, my name is Terry McCarthy, and if you're watching this, you've decided to look at my vlog. Every Friday, my hope and desire and my goal is to share a news story with you about what God is doing around the world in ordinary people. Our God is able to do extraordinary things in ordinary people's lives. Today, I want to give you a little story about how God has worked in and through my life. Let's face it, I am a big, loud, white woman. I've been big and loud and, white all of my life. And it was the one thing about myself that I really disliked. Loud is awful. It's considered not so feminine. In fact, many times people would call me in school loudmouth, and I hated it. And no matter how hard I tried to kill that loudness gene, it would always manifest itself. And it seemed like even when I came to the Lord and wanted to follow Jesus with all my heart, my biggest weakness, the thing I hated most about myself, was that horrible loudness. My mom said that when I was in school, the teachers always got on to me and I was always in trouble. And one day she asked one of my teachers, "Is Terry really that bad?" And the teacher said, "No, but she's always the one I can hear." Loudness drove me crazy. In fact, when I had my first date with my husband, we went on this date to a really nice restaurant, and I got way too excited about the menu. So when the waiter came to talk to us, I got really excited and loud. And after the waiter left, my husband said, "Hey, do you think we could use our inside voice?" And the sad thing was, I pretty much was. So this loudness thing has been a burden for me and something I've struggled with all my life. In the early 1980s, I had an opportunity to go and live and work in China. Let me tell you, I was not excited about living and working in China. First of all, I'm very afraid of communism. Secondly, I'm not a huge fan of dirt. And the third thing was, I really did want to be a missionary. I wanted to be a missionary so badly. But communist China in 1983 made it very clear there would be no proselytizing, no witnessing, no evangelism, no passing out Bibles. I was trying to figure out how the Lord was going to use me, a big, loud white woman in China, when I couldn't even do the basics of evangelism that I'd been practicing and working on all my Christian life. Well, with great fear and trepidation, I got on that plane and I flew to Beijing with a group of other, how should we call them? Christians who were going to teach in China. So we landed in Beijing. I didn't want to get off the plane. In fact, I was so uncomfortable with being there that the cleaning crew came on the plane and they said, "Lady, you need to get off plane now. You in Beijing." So I was the last person to leave the plane. Finally, after a 17-hour train ride up to the city where I'd be working, the city of Chongqing, we got into our rooms. There were three of us. There was me and my two teammates, Irma and Deborah. And we arrived and everything was just about as bad as you can imagine. We were three women living on a hallway with one toilet, and it had a wooden seat, and we had no running hot water. I'm not kidding. So every day I would teach my class. I had about 30 master students that were wanting to study English from a native English speaker. So every day I would teach my class, predominantly male, and I liked it. I liked it more than I thought I would. But in China in 1983, there was a thing the Chinese called English fever. And our campus of 14,000 students, everyone wanted to study English. Well, with only 3 Native American English speakers who were native English speakers, there were only 3 of us. And so each one of us had 30 students. Well, that would only be 90 students. So the university came to me one afternoon, the head of the Foreign Affairs, which is basically the Communist Party watching over us tower. So Lao Song came to me and he said, "Huoqi," that's my Chinese name. He said, "We want to give an all-campus lecture. because everyone on campus wants to hear native English speaker. And I thought about that, and I thought that's a great idea. And I said, well, what do you think you want the lectures to be on? It doesn't matter. Well, who do you want to give those lectures? We want you to give lectures. I'm like, are you sure, Lao Song? Because Irma was born and raised in China to missionary parents. He didn't know that. And she can speak Chinese. And Deborah has a master's degree in education. I think I'm probably the least qualified to give the all-campus lecture. Lao Song goes, no, we want you. You give all-campus lecture every Thursday night. Okay, what topic would you like me to speak on? We don't care. We no pay, so you decide what you speak on. And I thought for a minute, and I said a quick prayer. And I said, Lao Song, how about if I do a series of lectures on heroes of Hebrew literature? Oh, very good. I like that idea. Okay, heroes of Hebrew literature. And off he went, and flyers were made, and announcements were made, and we were ready for our first all-campus lecture Thursday night in the big lecture hall of our university. Now, let me tell you a little something about heroes of Hebrew literature. For years at my church, I taught 3-year-old Sunday school. So I know how to bring a Bible story home. You got to with 3-year-olds. So I decided that my heroes of Hebrew literature would be the stories about Daniel, David and Goliath. I figured Esther would be interesting, and maybe a little something about Ruth. Because I thought if they don't know that they're from the Bible, everybody would love a story. Chinese love stories a lot. So my idea was to use biblical figures and tell stories about God's faithfulness and his goodness and his intervention in ordinary people's lives. So Thursday night came. I was a little bit nervous. The Lao Song, the foreign affairs director, came and got me and walked me over to the big lecture hall. And it's one of those gigantic lecture halls where the platform is in the center of the floor, and then all the seats are stacked up high. And the lecture hall was built for probably about 350 people. And when I walked in that night, they had crammed over 600 people into that lecture hall. There was the president of the university, and there was the janitor. There were old people and young people. There were teachers and students, and some of the kids of the teachers and the students. The place was packed. I was a little bit more nervous when I saw the crowd, and I asked the Lord, and under my breath in a quick prayer, to please help me because I had no idea what I was doing there. So as we're standing on the platform and people are finishing getting seated, and people are on the floor and up in the rafters and packed in. And I looked over at Lao Song, and the idea came to my mind. Why in the world of all the people did he pick me? And I looked over at him and I said, Lao Song, why did you pick me to give this all-campus lecture? And Lao Song said, are you kidding? We have no PA system, and you're the only one loud enough. And I knew at that moment that God had designed in my DNA, in my gene pool, a loudness gene. I was made loud because God knew that one day he was going to call me to a city in China, to a campus of 14,000, who every Thursday night would hear of God's faithfulness and heroes of the Old and New Testament in a land where Bibles were banned. Every Thursday night. And I knew they could hear me because I was loud. They could hear me up in the very top rafters because God made me loud. I think about Eric Liddell. He was the Olympic medal winner who wouldn't run in the 1924 Olympics because his best event was on a Sunday. The movie Chariots of Fire is about Eric Liddell. Eric Liddell was born and raised in China to missionary parents, and after the Olympics, he returned to China to work with his parents. Eric Liddell died in a Japanese concentration camp in 1942. One day, his sister Mary asked him, "Eric, why are you running and racing all the time?" And Eric said, "Oh, Mary, don't you know? God made me fast, and when I run, I feel his good pleasure." Well, God made me loud, and when I'm loud, I feel his good pleasure. For each of us, there must be something in our lives we don't like about ourselves. And I know that even as a parent, there's things about your kids you may not like, and you look at them and think, "That's a horrible thing about that child." But maybe through nurturing and prayer and guidance, God will choose the weak things of our lives to show his strength, and the foolish things of our lives to show his power and wisdom. I don't know, but I hope that encouraged you today. Be who you are in Christ Jesus, and let him shine in all of his glory through your strengths as well as your weaknesses. Well, that's it for this week's vlog. I hope you'll join in next Friday. It's so good that you would subscribe to this channel, YouTube channel, Terry McCarthy Truth Matters. And if you like the vlog, be sure and give me a thumbs up, because that lets me know that you and I have connected. Have a great Valentine's Day. Have a wonderful weekend. And remember, truth matters.